The courtroom was already full long before the bailiff announced her arrival. Heat lingered in the air despite the hum of the old AC unit, a kind of static energy that clung to the backs of necks and made people sit straighter than usual. The smell was faintly metallic: polished railings, old microphones, a trace of sweat from bodies pressed too closely together. When Judge Judy finally stepped onto the bench, the sound of her heels on the hardwood floor seemed amplified, almost theatrical, though she moved without theatrics. The cameras, two posted in the corners, red lights glowing like watchful eyes, shifted toward her, capturing the faintest flicker of expression. She didn't smile. She rarely did. The room quieted itself, as though everyone simultaneously remembered they were in a place where silence was currency. Only the sharp clicking of the stenographer's pen broke the stillness, a mechanical beat marking time. Then she laughed. Not Judy, her. The woman in the second row, middle-aged, hair-styled in that stiff suburban curl, nails glossy pink like cheap glass. She leaned forward in her chair, elbow on the table as if the whole proceeding were some casual brunch. Her laugh was sharp, bright, and unmistakably mocking, bouncing off the walls with a confidence that wasn't earned, but performed. She didn't just laugh. She tilted her chin toward the bench, eyes narrow, and let her voice cut through the room like she was speaking into a microphone of her own. "Oh, come on. Seriously? This is your famous Judge Judy? Please. You're just an old actress in a robe. I came here to prove you're nothing more than a prop." The words landed like stones on glass. The back row stirred first. Someone gasped so softly it might have been imagined, but it rippled outward. A sudden murmur, a cough cut short. The quick rustle of a phone pulled from a purse. A man in a baseball cap whispered to the woman next to him, too low to catch, but her eyes widened, and she pressed a hand over her mouth. Nobody laughed with her. That was the point. The woman, her face almost smug in its self-certainty, smiled as though she had delivered the winning line of a debate. She crossed her arms, leaned back, waiting for the counterattack she was sure would stumble, falter, collapse under her glare. Judy did not blink. The judge's eyes, sharper than the cameras that circled the room, fixed on her as though narrowing the world to one face, one moment. Her posture didn't shift. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. "You laughed for 37 seconds, she said. The words weren't loud, but they cut. They sliced through the tension with the precision of a scalpel, controlled and clinical. "On the 38th, she paused, just long enough for the audience to lean in. "You won't be." The silence after that line was a silence that hurt. The woman's smirk wavered almost imperceptibly. Not gone, but thinner, less stable. She glanced sideways, noticing two teenagers raising their phones a little higher, recording, one of them mouthing a silent, "Oh my God." A man near the front shifted in his seat, folding his arms like someone settling in for a performance he didn't want to miss. The stenographer's fingers never slowed, though his jaw clenched tighter than before. The cameras zoomed, catching every twitch. For a moment, nothing happened. Just air, heavy and weighted with the collision of pride and authority. Then Judy's hand moved, slow, deliberate, to the gavel, though she didn't strike it. It was less about the sound than the suggestion that one small movement could reshape the atmosphere of the entire room. The woman swallowed, her throat working harder than the laugh she'd tried to sustain. But she didn't back down, not yet. She leaned forward again, meeting the judge's stare, a performance escalating because she had no idea what else to do. Her smile returned, brittle but loud, and she shrugged as though to say, "So what?" The audience, though, wasn't buying it. The air in the courtroom belonged to someone else now, and everyone knew it. Every second stretched too long, the kind of silence where even a cough would feel like blasphemy, the kind of moment where a single word could either ignite the room or bury it in shame. And when Judy finally spoke again, the audience wasn't breathing. "Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel." The woman couldn't stand silence. She filled it the way a child kicks at puddles, messy, loud, insistent. "Let's be honest here," she announced, shoulders squared, voice raised so even the bailiff flinched. "I don't owe a dime. This entire case is smoke and mirrors. And frankly," she gestured at the bench with a quick, slicing motion of her hand, "you're not even going to understand my paperwork." Her laugh was sharp, brittle, rehearsed. A laugh designed to say, "I'm in control." She reached into her oversized tote bag and pulled out a stuffed folder, swollen with photocopies and receipts. With a dramatic flick, she tossed it across the table. It landed with a dull smack, papers fanning out slightly, like wings clipped short. "Everything's in there. Already proved. You're welcome." The audience stirred. Someone whispered, too low to hear, but the sound of quiet skepticism carried further than shouting. A teenage boy in the back lifted his phone, zooming in on the folder like it was about to detonate. Judy didn't flinch. She reached forward slowly, as if the weight of the folder wasn't in the paper, but in what it might reveal. She opened it. The papers were tired, dog-eared, highlighted in fluorescent stripes. Notes in the margins scrawled with the aggressive confidence of someone trying to convince themselves as much as anyone else. The woman kept talking. She couldn't stop. "I've run a business for 15 years. My clients adore me. Look at those documents. I have witnesses, I have bank records, I have emails. Honestly, I should be suing them for harassment. This is nothing but a waste of taxpayer dollars." She looked back at the gallery as if to recruit allies. Instead, she found blank faces. A man in a denim jacket folded his arms, settling in. A woman in a cardigan hugged her purse tighter. Someone stifled a laugh, then coughed to cover it. Judy's pen clicked once. That small, metallic sound hushed the rowdiest corner of the gallery. Her eyes moved slowly across the page, then another and another. She read with the patience of a surgeon searching for an artery. The woman's voice grew louder, desperate to fill the void. "You think I'd show up here without proof? Please, this is ironclad. Ironclad." The judge turned back a page, then forward two, then stopped. She set the pen's tip on a date field, not quite touching, just hovering. Her voice, when it came, was calm enough to make people lean in. "One date here doesn't line up." The room reacted instantly. A murmur rolled through the gallery like a breeze across tall grass. Someone muttered, "Ooh." Phones tilted higher, recording every twitch of expression. The woman's smile stiffened. She reached out as if to snatch the folder back, then thought better of it. Her fingers curled into a fist against the table. "That's the contract," she said, trying to inject mockery but only managing strain. "I signed it the day we agreed. Everybody signed. It's valid." Judy didn't answer. She tapped the date once with her pen. "This one?" "Yes." The woman's voice was shrill now, though she tried to disguise it as indignation. "It's all standard. Payment received, contract signed, totally normal procedure. That's how it's done." The gallery rumbled again. They weren't convinced. The teenager in the back whispered something into his phone camera, grinning. The bailiff shifted his weight, but kept his eyes forward. Judy's eyes stayed on the paper, scanning every mark. The silence stretched. It wasn't accidental. She let the tension bloom until people were holding their breath without realizing it. Then she spoke. "You signed this contract on that date?" The woman leaned in, emboldened by the sound of her own voice. "Yes, 100%. I have proof. Emails, screenshots. I printed every last one." She jabbed a manicured nail against the folder. "You'll see, it matches perfectly." The front row tilted forward, watching the exchange like a tennis match. Judy placed another page beside the contract, a payment confirmation. She tapped it. "And this? Payment received?" "Day before," the woman blurted, then froze. She corrected herself instantly. "Same day, same week. Doesn't matter." "It matters," Judy said simply. The words fell like a hammer. The gallery reacted again, an audible intake of breath. Murmurs swelling until the bailiff raised his hand for quiet. The woman's nostrils flared. Her face burned with the flush of someone who felt the tide turning but refused to admit it. She forced a smile, brittle as glass. "I'll clear it up. Just a clerical slip. No big deal." Judy let the papers rest neatly, aligning the edges with exact precision, a gesture that looked small but carried the weight of finality. Her eyes lifted, and for a heartbeat, the silence was suffocating. "One date here doesn't match," she said again, slower this time, as though carving the words into stone. The woman mistook repetition for weakness. She smiled wider, straining her face. "Then I'll clear it up." "Good," Judy replied, voice cold enough to still the room. "Because based on your own documents, there's a problem you haven't noticed." The audience leaned forward as one. The woman shifted in her chair, suddenly less comfortable. She tried to mask it with bravado, but her shoulders stiffened. And for the first time since entering the courtroom, a flicker of doubt flashed across her eyes. Judy didn't rush. She placed the 2 pages side by side, angling them under the overhead camera so the gallery and the recording system could both see the dates. The red tally lights blinked to life, little eyes burning in silence. Her pen tapped once, quiet but deliberate. "Payment received May 9th, 2021, she said, voice even, stripped of flourish. She shifted her pen. "Contract signed June 2nd, 2022. The numbers weren't complicated. They didn't need to be. They sat there like a snare left in plain sight. And only now did the woman seem to realize her foot was already caught. "That's not what it looks like," she shot back instantly. The words tumbled too fast, like she was tripping on them. "That's a finalized version. Everyone knows you sometimes redo paperwork. It's standard. We agreed earlier, and then cleaned it up." The gallery reacted before Judy did. A ripple passed through the benches, soft exclamations, a few suppressed laughs. A man muttered, "Invoices first, contracts later," and earned himself a sharp look from the bailiff. Judy raised her eyes slowly, not to scold, but to press the weight of silence back into the room. When she looked again at the woman, the space seemed to contract around the two of them. "You received money," Judy said. "A full year before this document says the agreement existed. That's not standard. That's undocumented." Her tone wasn't angry. It didn't have to be. It was surgical. The woman's cheeks flushed. She threw one hand into the air, bracelets clattering. There were drafts. Obviously there were drafts. This is just the polished copy. My attorney. Judy tapped the folder with 2 fingers. "Your file contains no drafts. Only this contract and a set of emails." She pulled out one page, slid it across so the gallery could see the thick black font of a timestamp. Here you wrote, "Let's finalize scope once payment clears." The words sat there like wet cement. "Emails are informal," the woman snapped. Her voice wavered and caught. "People say things. That doesn't mean anything legally binding. You're twisting what was said." Judy placed the email beside the contract. 2 documents. 2 dates. A picture nobody in the gallery could unsee. The silence after was long enough to force people into uncomfortable awareness of themselves. Someone shifted, a cough strangled halfway out. A young man leaned forward, elbows on knees, eyes lit as if he'd just paid for front-row seats. "I haven't ruled on anything," Judy said, eyes never leaving the woman. "I'm reading your own submissions, and what they say is that the payment predates the contract by over a year." The words dug in. The woman inhaled sharply, fighting to shore up the performance. "Fine, then call it a deposit. It's a technicality. The work was agreed. This happens every day in business." Her laugh was thin, hollow. No one joined her. Judy didn't respond immediately. She smoothed the paper edges together, aligning them so precisely it looked ceremonial. "For 15 years, you've run this business?" she asked. "Yes," the woman snapped, "and I know how it works." "You said that already," Judy murmured, and the words were heavier for being quiet. "Let's not repeat ourselves." The crowd stirred, like the air itself recognized the blow. The woman blinked rapidly, her jaw tight, and then the door opened. It was such a small sound, the hydraulic hiss, the whisper of hinges, that people might have ignored it if the room hadn't been stretched so taut. But everyone turned at once. A man stood there, early 30s, shirt pressed but creased at the elbows. The kind of detail you notice when someone has changed clothes too often in too few days. In his right hand, pinched between 2 fingers, was a small black USB stick. The bailiff stiffened. "Identify yourself." The man cleared his throat. "Evan Morales." He glanced at the woman, one fast flicker of recognition, then away. "I worked for her. I brought something you asked for." He walked forward, each step carrying the attention of the entire room. The gallery tracked him as though gravity had shifted. Up close, he looked worn at the edges, faint shadows under the eyes, fingers restless at his side. He held out the USB. Judy took it. She didn't study him. She studied the object, weighing nothing in her palm. Without ceremony, she passed it to the clerk. The woman barked a laugh, brittle and metallic. "Oh, this is Rich, the disgruntled ex-employee. He was fired for incompetence. He'll say anything for revenge." Evan's mouth tightened, but his eyes stayed on the bench. "There's a recording. Office conversation. It's dated. You'll hear her talking about the contract, about the payment." The gallery swelled like a single chest inhaling. Phones tilted higher. Someone whispered, "Finally," as if they had been waiting for this beat. "Mr. Morales," Judy said, "did you make this recording lawfully?" "Yes," he said. His voice shook, but the words were clear. "New York is one-party consent. I was part of the conversation." That got another ripple. Half the gallery mouthing the phrase to themselves like they wanted to memorize it. Judy gave one small nod, acknowledging the legality without indulging commentary. She turned to the woman. "Do you dispute that your voice may be on this recording?" "My voice is everywhere," the woman snapped. Her hand pressed flat on the table, but her thumb worked nervously against her cuticle until the skin turned red. "Clients record all the time. Half the time they misquote. People love to edit things. It doesn't mean anything. We'll listen now, Judy said. I object, the woman shot back, louder. Your objection is noted, Judy replied, still calm. We'll listen. The clerk carried the USB to the sound technician seated against the far wall. Until that moment, he'd been invisible. A man in a navy polo, hunched over sliders and cables. Now all eyes followed him as he slotted the drive into a laptop, the action precise, careful, like fitting a key into a safe. The room shifted. The AC hummed, but no one heard it. The gallery stilled, bodies leaning forward unconsciously. Even the stenographer slowed, fingers poised, waiting. Judy folded her hands and addressed the benches. When this plays, you will listen to the entire clip without interruption. Anyone who speaks will be removed. Understood? A low murmur of assent. The bailiff scanned the rows, lingering long enough on the teenagers that they lowered their phones halfway. The woman forced a smirk, but it faltered under the dryness of her swallow. She checked her watch, pointless and transparent, then laid her hand flat again as though to pin herself to the table. The technician dragged a file into the player. A name appeared on screen, time-stamped, date-stamped. His finger adjusted the volume knob, a red light glowing steady. Judy gave a single nod. The click echoed in the hush, and for one suspended second, the courtroom heard itself, a chair creaking under weight, the faint tick of a ceiling fan blade, the soft scrape of fabric as someone crossed their arms. The silence swelled, thick and waiting. Then the speakers crackled to life. The recording began with ordinary noise, the soft hiss of air conditioning, a chair scraping, a shuffle of papers. Then came laughter, sharp, cutting, immediately recognizable, her voice. Of course I signed it after the fact, the recorded version of the woman said, casual, smug. Backdated it. Otherwise I'd have been nailed. On paper, it's perfect. The gallery reacted like a fuse catching flame. Gasps, a burst of nervous laughter, one long "ooh" before the bailiff's glare cut it off. Phones tilted higher, glowing red dots. Judy didn't flinch. She simply raised one hand. Silence returned instantly, heavier than before. The voice on the recording grew brighter, more cruel. And Judy? Please, she won't spot it. Sweet old lady in a robe. She doesn't dig. She just performs. This time the room winced. A ripple of embarrassed chuckles, people leaning away as if distance could save them from the arrogance spilling from the speakers. Judy's eyes sharpened. Her voice was a whisper, but it reached the back row. Pause. The tech froze the file, waveform jagged on the blue screen. Judy opened the folder, drew out a clean document, and placed it under the camera. A bank confirmation appeared on the monitors, numbers crisp, undeniable. Funds received April 28, 2021, she said evenly. Sender, the plaintiff. Receiver, your account ending 3627. Memo, deposit per agreement. The audience stilled. No laughter now, only the faint hum of the lights and the dry shuffle of someone shifting in their seat. Judy set the bank statement beside the contract. The dates clashed like cymbals. Across the table, the woman paled. She reached for words, for confidence, but nothing came out whole, finally. That proves nothing. Banks mislabel. It's sloppy bookkeeping. Judy slid another page forward, an email. 2 days before this transfer, you wrote, deposit per agreement. The same phrase. The woman's mouth worked, but her eyes flicked toward Evan and back, searching for a target. He's lying, bitter, fired for incompetence. He'll fake anything. Mr. Morales, Judy asked without looking away from her. Did you supply the bank record? No, Evan answered. That came by subpoena. I only brought the recording. The gallery murmured, low and heavy. The woman's face drained further. Judy placed her pen neatly beside the papers. You've confirmed what the dates already showed, she said. Payment before contract. Backdating after the fact. The woman's voice cracked. It's a conspiracy. You're twisting everything. I was joking, venting. Judy's gaze was steady. Play 5 seconds earlier. The clip rolled again, rustle of papers, then her recorded voice, confident and dismissive. Send the invoice first. Once it clears, we'll finalize and backdate. Clients don't care about admin. Old lady on TV won't cross-check. Click. Silence. This time, no one laughed. The weight of recognition settled. The teenagers in the second row lowered their phones without being told. Judy looked down at the documents, then up at the woman. Your own words. Your own numbers. The woman pressed both palms to the table, knuckles white. Her smile was gone. Her throat jumped with every shallow breath. For the first time, she wasn't performing. She was bracing. Judy turned to the bailiff. Bring in the next witness. The woman's head snapped. What witness? Her voice was high, frayed. No answer. The bailiff was already walking, his shoes striking in calm rhythm. Judy gathered the bank record, slid it back into the folder, her movements precise, inevitable. She lifted her eyes again, cold and steady. Let's see what your books have to say, she murmured. The latch clicked. The side door opened. A shadow stepped inside. The room, already silent, discovered how much quieter silence could be. The side door opened with a soft hiss, and a man entered, carrying a slim briefcase. He was in his early 40s, neat but tired at the edges, shirt pressed yet slightly worn at the cuffs, tie pulled tight as if for armor. He didn't glance at the gallery, his focus was the bench. State your name, the bailiff ordered. Marcus Ellison, the man said, steady but quiet. Certified public accountant. Judy's nod was slight. You worked with the defendant's accounts? Yes, Your Honor. I consulted on her company's books during the relevant period. He swore the oath, then placed his notebook on the stand. The coil was bent, corners dog-eared, each page lined with small handwriting, dates, sums, arrows. The gallery leaned forward. The weight of numbers was suddenly heavier than any performance. Mr. Ellison, Judy said, tell us what you found. Marcus flipped to a page, finger steady. The plaintiff's deposit of $100,000 was received on April 28, 2021. Within 3 days, most of it was moved, split between 2 accounts, then spent. Withdrawals marked as equipment had no invoices. Several payments went to non-existent vendors. About $22,000 was broken into smaller transfers and labeled services. None corresponded with real projects. The defendant gave a short, brittle laugh. That's called petty cash. Every business has it. Marcus didn't raise his voice. Petty cash is logged as petty cash. These were disguised, coded against the plaintiff's project. The benches stirred, voices low, electric. Someone whispered, "She's cooked." Did the defendant tell you this money was a deposit pending a contract? Judy asked. Marcus shook his head. No, Your Honor. She described it as client funds to cover operating shortfalls. In a meeting, she added, "We can paper the deal later. I just need the float." I noted her words at the time. The woman snapped, "Hearsay." Overruled, Judy said. her tone cut like glass. Continue. Marcus turned another page. By June, less than 30,000 remained. The rest was gone. Payroll gaps, rent, personal credit cards disguised as consulting fees. In December, she told me to reclassify the deposit as earned revenue. In January, she said, quote, "The client can cry all they want. The paperwork will say what I want it to. I could fool a judge with this." That line detonated. The gallery burst into gasps, half-laughs, claps before the bailiff barked, "Order!" A sharp whistle was cut short. Even those who had been restless earlier now sat rigid, staring at her. Judy lifted a hand. The noise collapsed instantly. "You're certain?" Marcus raised his notebook. The date was circled in red ink. "I wrote it down immediately. I'm certain." The woman leaned forward, venom returning. "You're pathetic, Marcus. Always hiding behind paperwork. I gave you a career. Now you want 15 minutes of fame? You're lying." He didn't look at her. I kept quiet until silence made me complicit. The audience murmured, approval rolling through it like a tide. Judy's face remained unmoved. "Anything further?" she asked. "Yes." Marcus's voice didn't waver. "The general ledger was altered the week before that recording. Dates edited to make expenses line up with a contract that didn't exist. The audit trail shows her login. I've provided the log." The clerk held up a stapled packet, slid it under the camera. Numbers glowed on the monitor like crime scene photos. "That will be marked as an exhibit," Judy said. "Thank you, Mr. Ellison." Marcus left as quietly as he'd entered. The bailiff shut the door behind him with a soft click. Judy turned her gaze to the defendant. The pause stretched, measured, pressing the room stiller with every second. "Do you wish to add anything?" The woman erupted. "Yes, this is a conspiracy. He's bitter. Evan's bitter. You all want a show for the cameras." "I'm the only one telling the truth. I built this business myself. They're jealous. I am the victim here." The word hung in the air, ugly and thin. Judy didn't blink. Her reply was soft, colder for being gentle. "A victim," she said, "of your own greed. Nothing more." The benches rustled. Half applause starting before dying, smothered by the bailiff's stare. Phones lowered. Even the gallery seemed to realize they were no longer watching a spectacle, but something heavier. Judy stacked the exhibits into a neat pile, aligning corners with precise taps. The sound of paper edges clicking together carried through the silent room. "Counsel absent," she said, "but the facts are not." Her eyes locked on the woman. "This court is prepared to render judgment." The woman's hands gripped the table, knuckles pale. "You can't. Not to me." Judy's voice didn't rise. "To you," she said. Then she reached for the gavel. The gallery leaned forward as one, bracing for the sound that would seal it. And in that suspended heartbeat, the air itself seemed to hold still. The gavel hovered in Judy's hand, but hadn't yet struck. That pause, long enough to breathe, too long to exhale, was the kind of silence that changed a room. Cameras blinked red, catching every twitch of her expression. The audience leaned forward, dozens of bodies synchronized in expectation. Finally, Judy lowered the gavel onto the bench. Not with a crash, not yet. Just a single measured tap that said, "Listen." Her eyes found the woman across the table. "You have left me with no choice," she said. Her voice was even, stripped bare of theatrics, and that made it cut deeper. "I find you liable for fraud." The words dropped like stones into water. The first ripples hit the front row, murmurs, an audible gasp, then spread backward through the gallery until the room was a low tide of disbelief and satisfaction colliding in equal measure. Judy didn't raise her tone. "You are ordered to return $100,000 to the plaintiff. In addition, you will pay court costs immediately." The woman's lips parted. Nothing came out. Her mouth worked again, a tremor at the corner of her jaw, but no words formed. Judy stacked the exhibits into a neat pile, aligning corners with small, final movements. The rustle of paper filled the silence like a shroud. She set them aside, as if sealing a file that would never need reopening. "This judgment," she continued, "is effective now. Not later. Not pending. Now." The gallery broke before the bailiff could stop it. Cheers, gasps, claps, even a sharp whistle. Some stood, phones raised higher, eyes wide as if they'd witnessed not a legal proceeding, but a reckoning. Others just shook their heads, grinning, whispering she deserved it under their breath. "Order!" the bailiff barked, but the command had to fight against a tide. It took Judy's raised hand, palm flat, to quell the noise. Instantly, silence fell again. And in that silence, all eyes shifted back to the woman. Her lips trembled. The smirk that had carried her through the morning was gone. No performance remained, no superiority. Her eyes darted to the exit, to the gallery, to the camera lights, searching for an escape that didn't exist. For the first time all day, she had nothing to say. Judy leaned forward. The cameras caught every millimeter, the slow weight of her presence pressing down across the bench, across the table, across the room. Her eyes locked onto the woman's, unblinking, a stare honed across decades of dismantling arrogance. And when she spoke, her voice was calm, quiet, almost tender. But every word hit like a nail. "Next time," Judy said, "think carefully before you laugh at a court of law. Because laughter," she paused, letting the stillness deepen, "can cost you $100,000. The gallery shuddered as if the words themselves were physical. Some laughed nervously, others clapped once, then twice, until it swelled into a strange, ragged applause. Less celebration, more release. The woman flinched at the sound. She pressed her palms flat to the table as though the wood could anchor her, but her fingers shook. She mouthed something, maybe unfair, maybe please, but no one heard it. Judy leaned back, gaze unbroken, and lifted the gavel one final time. The gallery held its breath. The cameras zoomed. Even the AC seemed to hush. And then, crack, the gavel struck wood, echoing like a shot. Darkness followed. The lights dimmed as though the building itself acknowledged the finality. Phones captured the last frame. Judy's eyes steady, the woman frozen. The gallery caught mid-reaction. The sound lingered in the air, not just in the room, but in memory, a verdict ringing louder than applause.